Anybody know when's Eid? Anybody know when's Eid? Eid day. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'du fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, we are sadly fast pacing towards the end of this series of Dajjal and the Dajjalic System. Obviously that means Itikaf is slowly coming to an end as well. But all is not lost. There's still today and potentially tomorrow for us to make up for any shortcomings that we have all had during this Itikaf, which no doubt people like myself have. And inshallah, the way we have prepared a program for you, what we have been teaching up until now, the idea is that it protects you and protects your Ramadan Itikaf even beyond the month of Ramadan. So you become a person of taqwa, you become a person who can handle trials and tribulations. And continuing on this series of Dajjal, today we have a more granular breakdown of how each and every single one of us can protect ourselves against this whole system where it's easier to fall into fitna, it's easier to commit sin. So inshallah ta'ala, today we're going to give you some real strategies of how to protect yourself going forward. So in that respect, we have Dr. Shah Alom, who many of you have met before, who is a scientist by profession. And they will be leading this session, which will be giving you these detailed strategies. So without further ado, I hand over to Dr. Shah Alom.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ihdina siratal mustaqim, siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, for the last 8 to 9 days, we are sitting in the masjid in Itikaf, fulfilling the sunnah, but also learning some of the ways and some of the pitfalls how the humanity and the ummah could fall, and especially one of the greatest fitnas to come in the future, so that we prepare ourselves and also prepare our children and our future generations as well. So quickly, in the next few minutes, as you've been sitting and hearing from different asatizas delivering different aspects of it, of what is Dajjal and the Dajjalic System, it's all well and good that we actually are talking, delivering in our the talks and so on, but the main important thing is the impressions and what takeaways you have so far. That's for us more important than how beautiful presentation we do here. So if you can ask with the mic that brothers just randomly can pick, and I want you to say in one sentence or a couple of sentences that what have you learned, what's your takeaways thus far. So if the brother can go with the mic from the right. I think just go scan the whole hall, inshallah. Obviously, people, brothers and sisters online, I believe Brother Hamid is on YouTube. Yeah, you can post your comments on YouTube and it'll be read out throughout the session, inshallah.
Just to clarify, what was the question again?
So, rather than me asking any directed question, you've been listening and learning for the last 8-9 days, specifically about the topic of Dajjal and the Dajjalic System. What are the 1 or 2 lessons that you've learned from this thus far that sticks out in you or helps you to refresh?
So we'll take a couple of people from here and then from the other side.
Just briefly, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
I think I'll try to describe it the best I can in words. Character, humility, gratitude.
Have you been to the right lesson? That's not Dajjal.
Say again?
That's not signs of Dajjal.
And the aspects of, I think, what I've learned, the takeaways from
Yeah.
the Itikaf itself, as far as the Dajjal is concerned, I think the way that I would...
So mashallah, Brother Walid, you've been very, very wise. What's the sign of a wise person? That he sees an evil, a foolish person, and learns from him exactly the opposite. And he just described exactly the opposite of what the Dajjal would be doing or is doing, or his system, and he learned that lesson. So that's good, mashallah. So you've got that holding one.
Shall I pass it on now?
Yeah,
I'm done.
inshallah.
While I'm good, sorry.
One of the biggest fitnas is social media, like we mentioned in social media, man. Now, most likely pornography.
Right. So these are the traits and habits of shaitanic and Dajjalic system where people fall in. So yeah, you've learned how to be careful from that. So that's good, mashallah. Ji.
I've learned that one of the main points is that there are certain qualities that produced the Dajjal and the Shaitan, and how we should avoid getting these character traits.
Okay, that's good, mashallah. Hamid, if there are any comments flying through, just pause and then we can read one, two as well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I've learned with the truth that we've been given here through the lessons to use them to counter the evil and in your day-to-day to stay away from the bad, especially the presence of Allah. Keep that in mind and that'll keep you protected.
It sounds like you've seen my presentation already, because we've never given any solutions out yet.
Yeah.
So, mashallah, this is the phase and the blessing of the Mashaykh that you already come to the understanding what will be the answer. So that's good. That's where we're heading towards as well, mashallah. Just maybe one or two, and that's it. Yeah, that should suffice.
What I've learned is that he will trick people with the truth and the false mixed together. So it'll be very confusing for a lot of people.
And especially pertaining to our time, it's very important that it is out there, like the example of the lion that we saw yesterday, that if you're on your own, there's so many truth, falsehood, everything mixed. One of our Ustadh Sajid and Brother Jabir and others, they went to USA. They covered 23 states in 1.5 months. They a proper road trip. And they went to far and wide, met so many different cultures and people. And be a Hindu, and so therefore he led them away to the point where he's got a huge statue of him in this complex, and like a hand like that, it's widespread, and they're calling himself he's a god. So that shows, and he was what's startling for him, which we'll show you now. What they've seen in there is that some of the teaching they actually plastered a very beautiful complex, very elaborate, is Islamic and the teaching of tazkiyah and purification. And our brothers were flabbergasted, saying, "Wow, this is what we teach." But there's a story is building, how slowly it leads to this person, the little Messiah, the little Dajjal, and how he led the whole community astray. And so they were there, they were obviously connected through the peace and love and enlightenment. They even prayed, Zohar or whatever prayer they prayed, and they were quite impressed by that. But that shows the need and importance of a guide, or else even well-intentioned person who has a good intention, they could be misled as well. And Dajjal is the classic one. He mixes the truth with falsehood and leads you astray. So yeah, that's good, mashallah. Well, anything from the online? Okay. So alhamdulillah, just in like a very briefly summarizing that what Ustadh and Asatizahs have been covering. First of all, alhamdulillah, our brother Ustadh Zafar Majid have covered initially in the first day, if you remember, look at the slide, that he mentioned about the Dajjal and the Dajjalic system. And he gave very, very good analogies, I'm sure, of that we actually are living in a Dajjalic system, whether we like it or not. So if you look at the slide, he explained about that. Then secondly, Ustadh Harun talked about the trials and tests of the fitna of Dajjal. And he's all born from the fact that we have our desires, and how these desires are in line with all the fitna and the attraction and allurement of the dunya. And it's all about instant gratification. So it starts from your basal, lower desires, the fundamental carnal desires, and how it builds up, and how this Dajjalic system through consumerism, identity crisis, corruption, social media, like the brother was saying, the love of dunya, which is innate in a person's heart who's not purified, captivates. You could say the Muslims who want to be good, we all want to be a better person, but how do we get captivated? It's because the system is out there that takes us to that point. So that's what he mentioned. And like you mentioned about the level 1, the base desires, knowledge, to impress, approval. So all these are necessarily not a bad thing. Know that nafs itself by nature is not an evil. It's an emotion. It's a source of energy. Unfortunately, we are getting trapped from very young age, and then it needs fulfilling. Nafs is a desire to eat, to sleep, to have a marital relationship. Now, how we fulfill that, that's the part where you get entrapped in the Dajjalic system, Shaitanic system, or the Prophetic system. But then it harnesses, because it's always in your face, it harnesses and takes us to that place where unfortunately we actually misuse that. Then alhamdulillah, Ustadh Shabir, he then also showed that the acts and behaviors, day-to-day acts we do, how we use our bodily organs, and how they entrapped us in following the Dajjalic system. And then once you carry on in this, what happens is we lead on to this path of destruction, as you can see, path of, Allah forbid, hellfire. It's because of the usage of our energy, our body, our organs, and so on. And he very much highlighted that very dire consequences of where we're heading towards. Then we moved on further, more subtle and inward, that how, for example, what are the mindset and thinking and the origin, the genesis of Dajjal and how it began. So he's giving you a backstory for us to then relate that why did Dajjal become the Dajjal. And so it was Brother Abdullah Ahmed, he's covered about the thoughts and mindsets that makes, and targets you as the Dajjalic ideology, and also the traits that's found in Dajjal. And for us to, like mashallah, Brother Walid said, to introspect that do we actually have those qualities. So alhamdulillah, the 2 sessions in detail, Brother Abdullah has covered that. Then all these different aspects, actions, the Dajjalic system, the foot soldiers, how we act, how we think, what are the qualities, the negative qualities and so on. They're all like different parts, which then culmination of then Ustadh Ijaz Ahmed. In your own time is fine, mashallah. Ji, Jazakallah, thank you for that. So in the Ustadh Ijaz then summarized that who are the people who will be following Dajjal. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the current, the Dajjal, like the one we mentioned earlier, where Ustadh Sajid met, or in the center, as well as there are many others now in the future leading up to the Dajjal himself. Remember, Dajjal, like Shaykh Ahmad Hadhrasa mentioned, is only going to be living for 14 plus months. But yet it has such a destruction effect. It's because he's planting the seed and it's all growing to the systematic way. So that's all. What does that give example of what? What is this? It's giving us a problem. It's happening now and the problem to happen in the future. And one thing, like from the Walid and Brother Umar has mentioned, this is an evidence of what? If you know the haqq and truth, What's this evidence of? That if the Dajjal were to come, what would you say to him? And it's in our statement of faith. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So this aspect is La ilaha. There is no God. Dajjal is not our God. He's not our purpose. His system is not our purpose. So it's about negation here. Up to this point, knowing the qualities, the traits, and the attributes, and the followers, they're all negation. They're not our ilah. They're not our God. Our ilah is whom? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then who are the exemplifiers of the follower of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then, mashallah, Ustadh Majid, he turned it on its head, on the Dajjal's head, by the way. And then he showed who are the believers who will not follow the Dajjal, who will stand firm and rather will fight and eventually defeat this corrupt system and the person of Dajjal himself. And who are the examples given? Obviously there will be an army of people, be it a very small group of people. But who are the examples given of the who will stand firm and fight against? Okay. And who, sorry? Okay. Unfortunately, even today, every now and then you hear stories, someone claims to be a Mahdi as well. So there was once I saw like a YouTube clip, and they said obviously Imam Mahdi will be of the descendant of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Hassani and Husseini, of Arab and obviously Hijaz origin. So one person once in the hall, he claimed he's a Mahdi. So the speaker said, no, you can't be. He said, why? Because you can't speak Arabic. And he goes, I can. He goes, prove it to me. He goes, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm Bidnin. He goes, that's not Arabic, that you read in Quran. He goes, oh, that's my Arabic. And he claimed to be Dajjal. So you get many Surah Dajjal, and there'll be Dajjal as well. So then we learnt about the three the personalities. Then Imam Qais talked about that how are these personalities, what ammunitions, what power, what source will they have that will help him to see who Dajjal who he is, or for what it is, and how will they stand firm. Is because they will have, and this is the point here now, they have and they will have a smart way, a prophetic way to protect and to even fight against the Dajjalic system and the Dajjal himself. And Imam Qais went to the detail about how this is possible into seclusion. Seclusion does not just mean leaving the world and going in the jungle. It has many meanings in that sense. Seclusion from the evil and the hands of the evil to the hands of the righteous, and secludes ourselves in the cave of safety of the pious and righteousness, and then in their hearts. And how give you some practical tips how to seclude yourself based on Suratul Kahf, the beginning verses. Who remembers the tips? Brother at the back. We're here yesterday. What was the tip? Only one. You mentioned a few.
Feed yourself for 1 hour.
Okay, mashallah. And in that 1 hour, you don't use social media and say that's my hour for my social media or Netflix or whatever it is. It's actually this hour you shut away, or you detach from everything else around and only purely focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what do you do in that hour? So for that, we'll give you a plan of action. I'll go through that later on, shortly, inshallah. So he's covered that in detail. So now, inshallah, leading up to this session now, inshallah, is we're going to be then, inshallah, covering how to prepare and to protect ourselves and others from his Dajjal, which eventually will come maybe in our lifetime, our little Dajjal, and its system as well, and to understand. And this is the holistic, prophetic way, which likes of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam and the leader Sayyidina Imam Muhammad Mahdi radiallahu anhu alayhi salam, and all will follow and be successful. So it's like a roadmap, like a template of success that everyone in our own lives, if you start to apply and abide by, you'll see the benefits in our own selves, inshallah. But before we start, I think the Ustadh have mentioned, and especially what Ustadh Abdullah has referred to, is we need to understand our origin. we learnt about the genesis and the story and the origin of the Dajjal and his system, but sometimes we're oblivious, we are unaware of our own origin as well. In order to know where you're going, what you are doing, you need to know who you are, where you're from as well. So that is explained in the whole summary of the teaching of Islam, in the Aqidah, in the belief system. And Alhamdulillah, it is a great wisdom of the Mashaykh, especially Shaykh Ahmed al-Baq in this current age, how they diagrammatically has illustrated this very beautifully at once, so that it's very vivid, it's visual, it's easy for us to remember, and we know then which direction we're heading towards. And I'm talking about this next one. Many of you might have seen it, maybe for many, it's new. Who's never seen this before? Just put your hand up, please. Who have never seen this before? You haven't? Okay, mashallah. Mulana must have been very humble. So, alhamdulillah, you are more or less aware of this. So, this is like a roadmap of all of our existence, and it's the existential life itself. So, I will not, if you're all aware of it. Okay. So who's seen it then before? That's one way to find out. There's some hands put up. Brother Umar, you've not seen it? Okay. Is your hand tucked up in behind your chadar, snuggled in? MashaAllah. That's good. And any response from online? Okay, that's fine. So I'll skip through fairly swiftly. So this is like roadmap we have to understand. This is our whole story. And it's important for me to touch upon because Brother Abdullah was talking about the free agent and so on. And there was some question raised about the freedom of choice and Dajjal. Why is it Dajjal? One is to understand this, to understand the whole concept of freedom of will and so on. So there was a time where there was nothing existed except obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah then out of his love to know himself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the love of himself and his qualities, he wanted to be known out of the love of being al-walud, to manifest that. So therefore he created creation to actually manifest that in the whole of the cosmos. So in there, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Anbiyas, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his nur, the arwah of other Anbiyas, the angels, then obviously our souls, our ruh, as well as the whole of the creation. And then after that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then has a couple of important events happened. So we were all in the world of spirit, as you can see there. And there's some important events took place. For you and I, you have to remember 4 events. That's very important to understand. First event is known as the assembly of the spirits. What that is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that were offered for the first time to the spirit, that's your spirit and my spirit, that I'm going to offer you this amana, the trust of freedom of will, free agents of responsibility, how you execute it. You'll have certain degree of freedom. I want to offer that to you, like it says in the verse, a translation of it, which was then offered to the heavens and the earth, the mountains, but they declined to bear it and were afraid of it. Meaning that they knew, they were presented what is the consequence of this amana to be accepted. Obviously it's great that Allah then showed us Jannah, showed us this world. We had like a tour. The spirit, the souls had a tour of Jannah, Jahannam. And this is important to note this, that Allah did a tour for us. He brought us to the plain of Arafat in this world as well. And gave us a tour. And said, this is the responsibility. If you do well, that's where you're heading. That's your home, Jannah. But if you misuse it, this is your home, other home, which is hellfire. And this will be manifested, i.e. the test or this freedom will be given on this part, which is the earth where we are now. So this Torah was given to us. Then to whole of the creation as well, not just us, obviously Jinnat with us and all the other creation. Once we all creation saw this presentation, everyone declined. It's no, the responsibility is too much. We can't handle it.